Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well. I did pick up a new mic, so hopefully that fixes all the sound issues. Obviously, I'm home now, so it's been a little bit of a crazy week, so I thought I'd do something kind of easy and just read maybe a chapter or two of The Count of Monte Cristo. It's one of my favorite movies, but I haven't actually read the book, so I feel kind of bad about that. So I thought maybe I'd read that with you guys and see how it goes. But yeah, so maybe we'll do that tonight. Chapter 1, Marseille, The Arrival. On the 24th of February, 1815, the lookout of the Notre Dame de la Guardia signaled the three-master, the Pharaon, from Sirmia, Trieste, and Naples. As usual, a pilot put off immediately and rounded the Chateau d'If, got on board the vessel between Cape Morgan and the island of Rion. Immediately, and according to custom, the platform of Fort Saint-Jean was covered with spectators. It is always an event at Marseille for a ship to come into port, especially when this ship, like the Pharaon, has been built, rigged, and laden on the stocks of the old fosse and belonged to an owner of the city. This ship drew on. It had safely passed the strait which some volcanic shock had made between the island of Calasarang and the island of Jaros. All these French names, they're gonna do me in. Had doubled Pommegue and approached the harbor under topsails, jib, and foresail, but slowly and sedately, that the idlers, with that instinct which misfortune sends before it, asked one another what misfortune could have happened on board. However, those experienced in navigation saw plainly that if any accident had occurred, it was not to the vessel itself, for she bore down all the evidence of being skillfully handled, the anchor ready to be dropped, the bowsprit shrouds loose, besides the pilot who was steering the Pharaon, by the narrow entrance of the Port Marseille was a young man who with active and vigilant eye watched every motion of the ship and repeated each direction of the pilot. The vague disquietude which prevailed among the spectators had so much affected one of the crowd that he did not await the arrival of the vessel in harbor, but jumping into a small skiff, desired to be pulled alongside the Pharaon, which he reached as she rounded the creek of La Reserve. When the young man on board saw the individual approach, he left his station by the pilot and came hat in hand to the side of the ship's bulwarks. He was a fine, tall, slim fellow, with black eyes and hair as dark as the raven's wing, and his whole appearance bespoke the calmness and resolution particular to men accustomed from their cradle to contend with danger. "Aye, is it you, Detente?" cried the man in the skiff. "What's the matter? And why have you such an air of sadness aboard?" "A great misfortune, Monsieur Morel," replied the young man. "A great misfortune for me especially. Off Civet Vichy, we lost our brave captain, Lacrel." "And the cargo?" inquired the owner eagerly. "It is all safe, Monsieur Morel. I think you will be satisfied on that head. But poor Captain Lacrel, what happened to him?" asked the owner, with an air of considerable resignation. "What happened to the worthy captain?" "He died." "Fell into the sea?" "No, sir. He died of brain fever in dreadful agony." Then turning to the crew, he said, "Look out there, all ready to drop anchor." All hands obeyed. At the same moment, the 8 or 10 seamen who composed the crew sprung, some to the main sheets, others to the braces, others to the halyards, others to the jib ropes, and others to the topsail brails. The young sailor gave a look to see his orders were promptly and accurately obeyed, and then turned again to the owner. "And how did this misfortune occur?" inquired he, resuming the inquiries suspended for a moment. "Alas, sir, in the most unexpected manner. After a long conversation with the harbour master, Captain Lacrel left Naples greatly disturbed in his mind. At the end of 24 hours, he was attacked by a fever, and died 3 days afterwards. We performed the usual burial service, and he is at rest, sewn up in his hammock, with 2 cannon balls of 36 pounds each, at his head and heels, off the Isle of El Giglio. We bring in his widow his sword and cross of honor. It was worth while, truly," added the young man, with a melancholy smile, "to make war against the English for 10 years, and to die in his bed at last, like everybody else." "Why, you see, Edmond," replied the owner, who appeared more comforted at every moment, "we are all mortal, and the old must make way for the young. If not, why there would be no promotion. As you have assured me that the cargo is all safe and sound, Monsieur Morel, take my word for it, and I advise you not to take 25,000 francs for the profit of the voyage." Then, as they were just passing the rounded tower, the young man shouted, "Ready there to lower the topsail, foresail, and jib." The order was executed as promptly as if on board a man of war. "Let go, and brail all." At this last word all the sails were lowered, and the bark moved almost imperceptibly onward. "Now, if you will come on board, Monsieur Morel," said Dantès, observing the owner's impatience, "here is your supercargo, Monsieur Danglars, coming out of his cabin, who will furnish you with every particulars. As for me, I must look after the anchoring and dress the ship in mourning." The owner did not wait to be twice invited. He seized a rope which Dantès flung to him with an activity that would have done credit to a sailor, climbed up the side of the ship, while the young man, going to his task, left the conversation to the individual whom he had announced under the name of Danglars, who now came toward the owner. He was a man of 25 or 26 years of age, of unprepossessing countenance, obsequious to his superiors, insolent to his inferiors, and then beside his position as a responsible agent on board, which is always obnoxious to the sailors. He was as much disliked by the crew as Edmond Dantès was beloved by them. "Well, Monsieur Morel," said Danglars, "you have heard of the misfortune that has fallen us." "Yes, yes." "Poor Captain Lacrel. He was brave and honest man, and a first-rate seaman, grown old between the sky and ocean, as should a man charged with the interests of a house so important as that of Morel and Son, replied Danglars. But, replied the owner, following with his look Dantes, who was watching the anchoring of his vessel, it seems to me that a sailor needs not be as old as you say, Danglars, to understand his business, for our friend Edmond seems to understand it thoroughly, and not to require instruction from anyone. Yes, said Danglars, casting toward Edmond a look in which a feeling of envy was strongly visible. Yes, he is young, and youth is invariably self-confident. Scarcely was the captain's breath out of his body, than he assumed the command without consulting anyone, and he caused us to lose a day and a half at the Isle of Elba, instead of making for Marseille directly. As to taking command of the vessel, replied Morel, that was his duty as captain's mate. As to losing a day and a half off the Isle of Elba, he was wrong, unless the ship wanted some repair. The ship was as well as I am, and as I hope you are, Monsieur Morel, and this day and a half was lost from pure whim, for the pleasures of going ashore and nothing else. Dantes, said the ship-owner, turning toward the young man, come this way. In a moment, sure, answered Dantes, and I'm with you. Then calling to the crew, he said, let go. The anchor was instantly dropped, and the chain ran rattling through the porthole. Dantes continued at his post in spite of the presence of the pilot, until this maneuver was completed, and then he added, lower the pendant half-mast high, put the ensign in the weft, and slope the yards. You see, said Danglars, he fancies himself captain already, upon my word. And so, in fact, he is, said the owner, except your signature and your partner's, Monsieur Morales. And why should he not have this? Asked the owner. He is young, it is true, but he seems to me a thorough seaman and of full experience. A cloud passed over Danglars' brow. Your pardon, Monsieur Morales, said Dantes, approaching. The ship now rides at anchor, and I am at your service. You hailed me, I think. Danglars retreated a step or two. I wish to inquire why you stopped at the island of Elba. I do not know, sir. It was to fulfill the last instruction of Captain Lecrail, who, when dying, gave me a packet for the Marshal Bertrand. Then did you see him, Edmond? Who? The Marechal. Yes. Morel looked around him, and then, drawing Dante to one side, he said suddenly, and how is the Emperor? Very well, as far as I could judge from my eyes. You saw the Emperor, then? He entered the Marechal's apartment while I was there. And you spoke to him? Why, it was he who spoke to me, sir, said Dantes, with a smile. And what did he say to you? Asked me questions about the ship, the time it left Marseille, the course she had taken, and what was her cargo. I believe, if she had not been laden, and I had been her master, he would have bought her. But I told him that I was only mate, and she belonged to the firm of Morel and Son. Aye, he said, I know them. The Morels have been ship-owners from father to son, and there was a Morel who served in the same regiment with me, that I was garrison in Valence. Perdu, and that is true, cried the owner, greatly delighted, and that was Policar Morel, my uncle, who was afterwards a captain. Dantes, you must tell my uncle that the Emperor remembered him, and you will see it will bring tears to the old soldier's eyes. Come, continued he, patting Edmond's shoulders kindly. You did very right, Dantes, to follow Captain Lecrail's instructions, and touch the island of Elba, although if it were known that you had conveyed a packet to the Marechal, and he had conversed with the Emperor, it might bring you into trouble. How could that bring me into trouble, sir? Asked Dantes, for I did not even know of what I was the bearer, and the Emperor merely made such inquiries as he would of the first comer. But your pardon, here are the officers of health and customs coming alongside, and the young man went to the gangplank. As he departed, Danglars approached and said, well, it appears that he has given you satisfactory reasons for his landing at the Port Ferrajo. Again, French names. Yes, most satisfactory, my dear Danglars. Well, so much the better, said the supercargo. for it is always painful to see a comrade who does not do his duty. Dantes has done his, replied the owner, and that is not saying much. It was Captain Lacreal who gave orders for this delay. Talking of Captain Lacreal, has not Dantes given you a letter from him? To me? No. Was there one? I believe that besides the packet, Captain Lacreal had confided a letter to his care. Of what packet are you speaking, Danglars? Why, that which Dantes left at Porto Ferrajo. How do you know he had a packet to leave at Porto Ferrajo? Danglars turned very red. I was passing close to the door of the captain's cabin, which was half open, and I saw him give the packet and letter to Dantes. He did not speak of it to me, replied the shipowner, but if there be any letter, he will give it to me. Danglars reflected for a moment. Then, Monsieur Morel, I beg of you, he said, not to say a word to Dantes on the subject. I may have been mistaken. At this moment the young man returned, and Danglars retreated as before. Well, my dear Dantes, are you now free? Inquired the owner. Yes, sir. You have not been long detained. No, I gave the custom-house officer a copy of our bill of lading. As to the other papers, they sent a man off with the pilot to whom I gave them. Then you have nothing more to do here? No, all is arranged now. Then you can come and dine with me. Excuse me, Monsieur Morel, excuse me if you please, but my first visit is due to my father, though I am not the less grateful for the honor you have done me. Right, Dantes, quite right. I always knew you were a good son. And, inquired Dantes with some hesitation, do you know how my father is? Well, I believe, my dear Edmond, though I have not seen him lately. Yes, he likes to keep himself shut up in his little room. That proves, at least, that he is wanting for nothing during your absence. Dante smiled. My father is proud, sir, and if he had not a meal left, I doubt he would have asked anything from anyone except God. Well then, after his first visit has been made, we rely on you. I must again excuse myself, Monsieur Morel, for after this first visit has been paid, I have another, which I am most anxious to pay. True, Dantes, I forgot that there was at the Calatans someone who expects you no less than your father, the lovely Mercedes. Dantes blushed. Said the shipowner, that does not astonish me, for she has been to me 3 times, inquiring if there were any news of the Pharaoh. Peste. The French, it's gonna get me. Edmond, you have a very handsome mistress. She is not my mistress, replied the young sailor gravely. She is my betrothed. Sometimes one and the same thing, said Morel, with a smile. Not with us, sir, replied Dantes. Well, my dear Edmond, continued the owner, do not let me detain you. You have managed my affairs so well, I ought to allow you all the time you require for your own. Do you want any money? No, sir, I have all my pay to take, nearly 3 months' wages. You are a careful fellow, Edmond. So I have a poor father. Say I have a poor father, sir. Yes, I know how good a son you are, so now haste away to see your father. I have a son too, and I should be very wroth with those who detained him from me after a 3 months' voyage. Then I have your leave, sir? Yes, if you have nothing more to say from me. Nothing. Captain Lacreal did not, before he died, give you a letter from me? He was unable to write, sir, but that reminds me that I must ask your leave of absence for some days. To get married? Yes, first, and then to go to Paris. Very good. Have what time you require, Dantes. It will take quite 6 weeks to unload the cargo, and we cannot get you ready for sea until 3 months after that. Only be back again in 3 months for the Pharaoh, added the owner, patting the young sailor on the back. Cannot sail without her captain. Without her captain, cried Dantes, his eyes sparkling with animation. Pray mind what you say, for you are touching on the most sacred wishes of my heart. Is it really your intention to nominate me captain of the Pharaoh? If I were sole owner, I would nominate you this moment, my dear Dantes, and say that it is settled. But I have a partner, and you know the Italian proverb, ch1 è padrone. He who has a partner has a master. But the thing is at least half done, as you have one out of 2 voices. Rely on me to procure you the other. I will do my best. Ah, Monsieur Morales, exclaimed the young seaman, with tears in his eyes, and grasping the owner's hand. Monsieur Morel, I thank you in the name of my father and of Mercedes. Good, good, Edmund. There's a sweet little cherub that sits up aloft the keep, and keeps watch for good fellows. Go to your father, go and see Mercedes, and come to me afterwards. Shall I row you on to shore? No, I thank you. I shall remain and look over the accounts with Danglars. Have you been satisfied with him this voyage? That is according to the sense you attach to the question, sir. Do you mean, is he a good comrade? No, for I think he never liked me since the day when I was silly enough, after a little quarrel we had, to propose to him to stop for 10 minutes at the island of Monte Cristo to settle the dispute, a proposition which I was wrong to suggest, and he quite right to refuse. If you mean as responsible agent that you ask me the question, I believe there is nothing to say against him, and that you will be content with the way in which he has performed his duty. But tell me, Dantes, if you had command of the Pharaon, should you have the pleasure in retaining Danglars? Captain or mate, Monsieur Morales, replied Dantes, I shall always have the greatest respect for those who possess our owner's confidence. Good, good, Dantes. I see you are a thorough good fellow, and will detain you no longer. Go, for I see how impatient you are. Then I have leave. Go, I tell you. May I have the use of your skiff? Certainly. Then for the present, Monsieur Morel, farewell, and 1,000 thanks. I hope soon to see you again, my dear Edmond. Good luck to you. The young sailor jumped into the skiff and sat down in the stern, desired to be put ashore at the Canabiere. 2 rowers went to their work, and the little boat glided away as rapidly as possible in the midst of the 1,000 vessels which choked up the narrow way which leads between the 2 rows of ships from the mouth of the harbor to the Quai d'Orléans. The ship owner, smiling, followed him with his eyes until he saw him spring onto the quay and disappear in the midst of the throng, which from 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night choke up the famous street of Canabiere, which from the modern Phocines are so proud and say with all their gravity to the world, and with that ancient which gives so much character to what is said, if Paris had the Canabiere, Paris would be a second Marseille. On turning around, the owner saw Danglars behind him, who apparently attended his orders, but in reality followed, as he did, the young sailor with his eyes, only there was a great difference in the expression of the looks with the 2 men who thus watched the movements of Edmond Dantes. I think we'll stop there. It's the end of chapter 1. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll continue this, maybe not next time, but we'll continue it again. Kind of like the idea of reading a book, and it is a big book, so this will probably be done bits and pieces here and there. So, okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.